Alright folks, settle in, because tonight we're diving headfirst into a story that's as much a part of American history as it is American horror. We all know Abraham Lincoln, right? 16th president, the guy on the penny, led the country through the Civil War, a monumental figure, no doubt about it. But here's where it gets a little weirder. It turns out, Honest Abe might be one of the White House's longest and most persistent uninvited guests. We're talking about a spectral president, a ghostly commander-in-chief, who apparently decided that death wasn't a good enough reason to vacate the premises. This isn't just some campfire tale whispered by interns. We're talking about decades of reported encounters from some surprisingly credible witnesses. Now, when I say Lincoln's ghost is a big deal in the White House, I mean it's practically a roommate who doesn't pay rent but definitely makes his presence known. From first ladies to foreign dignitaries, from seasoned politicians to unsuspecting staff members, the stories of encountering Lincoln's spirit are numerous, and frankly, pretty chilling. It's like the White House isn't just the seat of American power, it's also a paranormal hotspot, with Lincoln himself as the star attraction. You've got shadowy figures, phantom footsteps, and that distinct feeling of being watched by someone who, well, shouldn't be there anymore. It's a fascinating intersection of history and the unexplained, a place where the weight of the past feels incredibly and sometimes spookily present. So in this video, we're going to peel back the layers of this enduring legend. We're not just going to skim the surface, oh no, we're going deep. We'll explore some of the most notable sightings, the ones that have really cemented Lincoln's ghostly legacy. We'll look at who saw what, where they saw it, and how these encounters have shaped our understanding of Lincoln, not just as a historical leader, but as a potential permanent resident of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Prepare yourselves, because the stories of Lincoln's ghost are as compelling as they are creepy, and they raise some big questions about what happens after we shuffle off this mortal coil. So, where do these stories even begin? Well, one of the earliest and most talked about encounters comes from none other than First Lady Grace Coolidge, back in the 1920s. Now, Mrs. Coolidge wasn't known for being a particularly flighty or superstitious person, which makes her account all the more intriguing. The story goes that she was in the Yellow Oval Room, a space that was once Lincoln's office and library, a room where he spent countless hours wrestling with the fate of the nation. She reportedly looked towards one of the windows overlooking the Potomac and saw the distinct, lanky figure of Abraham Lincoln, hands clasped behind his back, gazing out pensively. Imagine that for a second. You're just going about your day and boom, there's a former president, long deceased, chilling by your window. That's enough to make anyone question their sanity, or at least their choice of residence. This wasn't just some fleeting glimpse that could be easily dismissed either. The clarity of her sighting and her conviction really set the stage for future reports. It's like she opened the paranormal floodgates. Before this, while there might have been whispers or feelings, Grace Coolidge's experience was one of the first to be more openly discussed, lending a certain presidential seal of approval to the idea that Lincoln was still around. It makes you wonder if the First Lady herself is seeing him, what else is going on in those historic halls. This sighting helped to cement the Yellow Oval Room, already steeped in Lincoln's history, as a key location for his spectral appearances, a place where the veil between worlds seems particularly thin. It wasn't just a room anymore, it was potentially Lincoln's favorite haunting spot. Fast forward a couple of decades to 1942. World War II is raging, and Queen Wilhelmina of the Netherlands is seeking refuge in the White House as a guest of President Roosevelt. Now you'd think, being royalty, you'd be prepared for some unusual encounters, but probably not of the spectral kind. The Queen was staying in the Rose Room, another part of the White House with its own share of history. One night, as the story goes, she was awakened by a knock on her bedroom door. Thinking it might be an important message or a staff member, she got up and opened it. But standing there wasn't a butler or a secretary. Oh no, it was, according to her, the unmistakable figure of Abraham Lincoln. Can you even imagine? You open your door expecting a cup of tea or something, and instead, you get a face-to-face with a Civil War-era ghost. Queen Wilhelmina, understandably, was not amused. In fact, she was so startled, so utterly shocked by this late-night presidential apparition, that she reportedly fainted dead away. When she came to, the figure was gone. Now, some might say, oh, it was a dream, stress of the war, and sure, that's possible. But for a queen to have such a visceral reaction, and to recount it, adds a whole other layer of what the heck to Lincoln's ghostly resume. It's one thing for staff to see something, but royalty? That takes the White House hauntings to an international level of weird. Now if you thought a queen fainting was a dramatic encounter, hold on to your hats, because Winston Churchill's alleged meeting with Lincoln's ghost is the stuff of legend. Churchill, as we know, was a frequent guest at the White House during World War II. The story goes that one night, after a long, hot bath, and apparently Churchill was fond of emerging from said baths in his birthday suit, a detail that just makes this story even better, he strolled back into his bedroom, probably looking forward to a cigar and a good night's sleep. But who does he find standing by the fireplace, looking as solemn as ever? You guessed it, Abraham Lincoln. Here's where it gets truly iconic. Churchill, stark naked, reportedly takes his cigar out of his mouth, looks at the spectral president and says something along the lines of, "Good evening, Mr. President. You seem to have me at a disadvantage." I mean, the sheer audacity, the British wit in the face of a potential paranormal event. According to the tale, Lincoln's ghost simply smiled faintly and then slowly faded away. Whether it's true or not, the image is incredible. A naked, cigar-chomping Churchill having a casual chat with the ghost of one of America's most revered leaders. It's a story that perfectly encapsulates the almost surreal nature of these White House hauntings, mixing historical gravitas with moments of unexpected and frankly hilarious humanity. It wasn't just visiting dignitaries who had run-ins with Honest Abe's spirit. Several presidents and their families have also reported some rather unsettling experiences. Theodore Roosevelt, a man known for his robust and no-nonsense demeanor, allegedly told friends that he had felt Lincoln's presence in the White House on multiple occasions. He didn't claim to see a full apparition, but more of a profound sense that Lincoln was there, observing. Then there's Eleanor Roosevelt, wife of FDR. She used the Lincoln bedroom as her study, a room literally steeped in his memory. She often wrote about feeling his presence very strongly, as if he were standing right behind her, looking over her shoulder while she worked. That's a pretty intense work environment if you ask me, and the list goes on. Harry S. Truman, another president not known for flights of fancy, reported hearing mysterious knocks on his bedroom door, which he attributed to Lincoln. He even wrote to his wife Bess about it, saying, "I sit here in this old house and work on foreign affairs, read reports and work on speeches, all the while listening to the ghosts walk up and down the hallway." Then, much later, Maureen Reagan, daughter of President Ronald Reagan, and her husband Dennis Revel, both claimed to have seen a shadowy figure resembling Lincoln standing by the fireplace in the Lincoln bedroom. It seems like every generation that occupies the White House gets a little reminder that they're not entirely alone, and that some presidential legacies are more persistent than others. If there's one spot in the White House that could be considered the absolute epicenter of Lincoln-related paranormal activity, it's gotta be the Lincoln bedroom. Now, ironically, Lincoln himself never actually slept in this room. It was his office and cabinet room during his presidency. This was where he signed the Emancipation Proclamation, where he made countless critical decisions that shaped the nation. So, it's no surprise that if his spirit were to hang around anywhere, this room, so intimately tied to his life and work, would be a prime candidate. Over the years, it's become so notorious for ghostly encounters that guests staying there are often half expecting a spectral visit. It's not just the famous folks who've had experiences here either. White House staff members have their own stories. Mary Eben, who was Eleanor Roosevelt's secretary, reported seeing Lincoln sitting on the edge of the bed, pulling on his boots. Imagine walking in to tidy up and finding that. Then there's Tony Savoy, a White House operations man who claimed to feel an intense cold spot in the room and, on one occasion, saw an indentation on the bed as if someone had just been sitting there, even though the room was empty. These accounts from everyday staff, people just trying to do their jobs, add a layer of chilling relatability to the legend. It suggests that Lincoln's presence isn't just reserved for the powerful or the prominent. He's an equal opportunity haunter. Now let's step outside the White House for a moment, because Lincoln's ghostly legend isn't confined to its walls. One of the most famous, or perhaps infamous, pieces of evidence related to Lincoln's spirit is the Mumler Photograph. This takes us to the post-Civil War era, a time when spiritualism was gaining immense popularity, especially among those grieving the massive loss of life from the war. Mary Todd Lincoln, a woman already burdened by immense personal tragedy, including the loss of several children and then her husband's assassination, was, understandably, deeply drawn to the idea of communicating with the departed. Enter William H. Mumler, a Boston-based photographer who claimed he could capture spirits on film. In the early 1870s, Mary Todd Lincoln, under an assumed name, sat for a photograph with Mumler. When the plate was developed, it showed a hazy, transparent figure standing behind her, hands resting on her shoulders, a figure that bore a striking resemblance to her late husband, Abraham Lincoln. This photograph became an absolute sensation. For believers, it was undeniable proof of Lincoln's continued presence and his connection to his grieving widow. For skeptics, and there were many, Mumler was a charlatan, expertly using darkroom tricks like double exposure. Mumler was even put on trial for fraud, though he was acquitted. Regardless of its authenticity, the Lincoln ghost photograph had a profound impact, fueling public fascination with spiritualism and solidifying the image of Lincoln as a lingering spirit in the American consciousness. So, if we entertain the idea, just for a moment, that these countless stories hold some truth, the big question is, why? Why would Abraham Lincoln, of all people, be haunting the White House? Well, there are a few theories floating around, ranging from the deeply personal to the broadly psychological. One of the most common is the unfinished business theory. Lincoln was assassinated at a pivotal moment in American history, with the Civil War just ending and the monumental task of Reconstruction just beginning. Could it be that his spirit is tied to the White House, unable to rest because his work felt incomplete, or because he felt a profound responsibility for the nation's future even in death? It's a compelling thought, a president so dedicated he can't quite clock out. Then there's the idea of an emotional imprint or residual haunting. The White House, and particularly rooms like the Lincoln bedroom, his former office, were sites of immense stress, anxiety, and profound historical moments during his presidency. The theory suggests that intense emotions and significant events can leave a kind of psychic residue on a location, replaying like a recording. So, what people are experiencing might not be an interactive spirit but an echo of Lincoln's presence. Of course, we also have to consider the power of suggestion and collective memory. Lincoln is such an iconic figure, and the stories of his ghost are so well known that perhaps people are predisposed to interpret unusual occurrences as his doing. It's hard to say definitively, and frankly proving any of this is next to impossible, but the theories themselves are as fascinating as the sightings. Whether you're a staunch believer or a hardened skeptic, there's no denying the incredible cultural impact of Lincoln's ghost stories. They've transcended mere anecdotes and have become a significant thread in the tapestry of American folklore. It's like Lincoln isn't just a historical figure learned about in textbooks. He's also this legendary, almost mythical character who walks the halls of power in the afterlife. These tales add another spookier dimension to his already monumental legacy, making him relatable not just as a leader, but as a subject of our collective curiosity about the great beyond. It's a uniquely American ghost story, tied to one of its most revered and tragic figures, playing out in the nation's most famous house. This enduring fascination with Lincoln's spectral side is reflected all over popular culture. Books have been written, documentaries produced, and countless TV shows and movies have featured or referenced the White House hauntings, often with Lincoln as the star ghostly presence. Each retelling, whether serious or satirical, further cements the legend in the public imagination. It speaks to a broader human fascination with the supernatural, with the idea that extraordinary individuals might leave an equally extraordinary mark on the world, even after they're gone. Lincoln's ghost, in a way, keeps him perpetually relevant, a historical figure who is also, quite literally, haunting the present, ensuring that we never quite forget the man or the profound impact he had on the nation. So, after sifting through decades of chilling encounters from first ladies to foreign royalty, from presidents to painters, what are we left with? The stories of Abraham Lincoln's ghost are more than just spooky tales to tell in the dark. They're a fascinating reflection of his monumental impact on the American psyche. Here was a man who guided the nation through its darkest hour, who made unimaginable sacrifices, and whose life was cut tragically short. It's almost as if the collective consciousness of the nation can't quite let him go, or perhaps that he himself feels his watch is not yet over. These spectral sightings, whether you believe them to be literal manifestations or powerful metaphors, underscore the sheer weight of his presence in American history. The enduring nature of these hauntings also speaks volumes about our own human condition. We're inherently curious about what lies beyond the veil, about the possibility of an afterlife, and about whether those who have profoundly shaped our world can somehow continue to influence it. The idea of Lincoln, a figure of such integrity and importance, still walking the halls of the White House offers a strange sort of comfort to some, a tangible link to a pivotal past. It's a testament to how deeply history can embed itself into a place, and how certain figures become so legendary that they transcend their own mortality in our stories and, just maybe, in reality. Ultimately, whether Abraham Lincoln's spirit truly roams 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue is something we, the living, may never definitively prove or disprove. But the power of these stories is undeniable. They highlight his lasting influence, a legacy so profound that it literally haunts the highest office in the land. And they tap into that fundamental American and human curiosity about the mysteries that lie just beyond our understanding. So the next time you see a picture of the White House at night, maybe, just maybe, spare a thought for its most famous and perhaps most spectral resident.